It's great to have the league invite me back. It's since 1998, so a lot's happened in 15, 16 years. We've been able to sustain and grow a practice that is allowing us to work, as Walter alluded to, at a variety of scales. And I'm just really excited about the possibilities that lie ahead. These are great times. I was approached, my firm and I, by Princeton Architectural Press back in 2005 to do a monograph. And one of the things they insisted upon is that we have an image, an iconic image that really describes our place. And for us, everything begins with wherever we're working, being attentive to place. And I live, of course, in Fayetteville, but it's also the Ozark Mountains, the home of the Ozarks. And we kind of define the Ozarks in our mind as the intersection of hills and valleys. Fayetteville is the only town in northwest Arkansas that's built on hills. And so we thought, well, that's the image we want to portray. So we found you can stand actually in the hills in downtown in Fayetteville and look out and see chicken houses and pastures and the whole city country thing merging. It's also our public institution, University of Arkansas, is located there, our flagship university for the state. So we found this field with this great cow that you see, and she's got a newborn calf. And then on the hill, you'll see a silhouette of a building, which is Old Main, built back in 1877. So here we have the university, this idea of education and culture merging with agriculture, and that really was, I think, the defining our place. And just as we went to photograph it, a Walmart truck drives right through the middle of it. And I'd completely forgotten, oh yes, we're also the center of commerce in many ways. The headquarters for Walmart is located right smack dab in the middle of northwest Arkansas. So it's a very complex and interesting place. Before I dive into that, just a quick biographical sketch. Ann said that might be okay. I'm from Alabama, but I was born in Germany to a military family. I grew up loving to draw. I was a cartoonist all through my life, right up through college. So everything that you see, most everything is conceived in profile and in section. It's the way in which I sort of get expressive character out of things, at least in my mind. I loved nature, and I feared it just as much as well. You'll see that as well. I was a high school wrestler. It's the only thing I was really particularly good at in sports. I wrestled a bear in high school. I can tell you that I lost. It kicked my ass. It's a long story, and after a lot of bourbons, I usually tell that story. I went to Auburn University in architecture without ever having read a book on architecture. I had no idea what it was. I had heard of a guy named Wright. I came from a very modest background with not the money to actually go to college. Cooper Union would have been a great place for me at the time. But I went to Auburn, and I had to figure out a way to put my way through school. So I became a Bible salesman. During the summers, for 5 summers, I put my way through school by selling Bibles door to door in a particular rural county in the rural South. It was an amazing experience to be placed in places that you only read about, even as a Southerner, to experience directly the landscape, the food, the culture, and the stories that are really part of this place. And as part of that, I got to learn how to tell a few stories, as any good Southerner would. And then I was really good, so I won a few awards. And at one of the banquets, this guy was running for president, and I got to shake his hand. He was very disturbed by my outfit, as many people would be. I certainly didn't look like the entrepreneur youth of America. But I just wanted to show this. Anybody can survive the 70s fashion. If anybody's been through that, there's life after that. So everything's been pretty much downhill since then. But nonetheless, I had this picture for about, nearly 30 years kind of hanging out. And, I consider myself politically independent. But the only pressure I ever had with anybody political was a Republican. And so I said, God, that's got to change. So last year I got to meet this guy, and I told him the story about that, and he says, well, I can help you with that. And he took me around, and so now I've got a little balance in my life. But I also show this because, this is another product of Arkansas. And we like to call Arkansas the land of Bill and a billion chickens. And what I love about the chickens, of course, are the chicken houses that come with them, these narrow, long structures that dot the landscape of northwest Arkansas. And the chicken farmers were pretty smart. They figured out that if you narrowed the building and you oriented it east-west, almost all of them are east-west, you know where you are when you see one, you can minimize the sun exposure on the east and the west and control the sun on the south, and the chickens wouldn't cook before their time. And I love the common sense in that. And that's the kind of thing that we try to instill in our own work, is this sort of direct common sense on how we approach the environment, how we approach place, and how we approach larger social issues that come with the work. I'm working from a conviction that architecture is larger than the subject of architecture. And so what we've tried to do is handle the feedback. There we go. What we tried to do is look at the world with a wide-angle microscopic lens to generate ideas and actions from the concrete experiences we have of the everyday, of our place, between the ordinary and the extraordinary, between our own personal history and the history of our discipline. You might recognize this project here on the left. That's Thorncrown Chapel, the masterwork of my mentor, E. Fay Jones. I never worked for Fay. I never was taught by Fay. It was a friend and mentor. He was an inspiration to me in what he was able to do in the middle of nowhere, is put architecture that felt close to everywhere out there. This is a wonderful project. We've had everybody, every architect I think I've ever brought there, no matter what their own sensibilities are, they really get it, and they respond to this place in a visceral way. Now, just a few miles away, in the same town, Eureka Springs, it's about an hour from where I live, there's also another iconic figure there, known affectionately as Milk Carton Jesus. Now, he's part of the Passion Play, where people come and watch the story of Christ acted out by actors in the setting of Jerusalem that's 3/4 inches thick. It's built out of painted plywood. But they had this idea of making a really big, iconic Jesus that would mark the landscape that you could see for miles. And they went to install it, and they found out rather late from the FAA that they would have to put a flashing blue light on top of Jesus' head because he was so tall. But rather than redesign him, what they did is just lopped him off at the knees and pushed him into the ground, and affectionately has the proportions of a milk carton. I show you these two extremes here because those are the conditions we work between the high and low of culture, and we see neither as a particular positive or a negative. We just see it as a deep source of possibilities in direct engagement with the world. And what we're trying to do is not solve one to the other, but in fact to create a condition of resonance between these conditions through the things that we make. And so this requires a lot of attentiveness. Rick and I were talking today about being attentive to place, being a careful observer, both from a microscopic level as well as a macroscopic. A careful observer of the biological, the geological, and always, of course, the cultural. And I think in that way, I've been able to develop a more bottom-up inductive process that allows us to amplify the small things that manifest the large things. So in this line of thinking, we can say, in the words of the great poet William Carlos Williams, that in effect there are no ideas but in things. And I believe this line of questioning or this line of thinking allows us to engage some very critical questions in our work, and I'm sure for the architects and students out in the audience, you're tackling these questions as well, or you should be. One is, how as contemporary architects do we engage the world without being consumed by it? And secondly, how do we enrich and dignify the experience of being in the world for those who engage our work? This to me seems like be pretty important questions and a really part of our mission as a profession. I think Da Vinci talked very succinctly about working from the experience of things when he said it should not be so hard for you to look into the ashes of a fire or the stains on a wall or mud or clouds or light places in which you may find really marvelous ideas. And so all we're trying to do is, out of the muck of our own condition, is to find really marvelous ideas. And I think, in a more recent kind of quote rather than Da Vinci, I heard from a novelist, David Foster Wallace, who was giving a commencement at Kenan College recently. And he basically was telling the students, if you can't construct meaning from experience, you will be totally hosed. And I think that's about as direct as you can be. You have to be able to reinterpret the world as it's given to you in effective and resolute ways. So I think, one of the things we've been asked to talk about a little bit is, and get labeled all the time as is a regional architect. And, it's something that I know myself, and I have some friends here in the audience, we kind of bristle a little bit about that. Because yes, we do work in a place, and it's different from New York or Chicago or San Francisco, but it is a place just like this place. And at the same time, we're not prisoners to that place. We have a very good grasp of the universal language of architecture as well. And so we see in the regional a familiar face, and it does reflect our values and our relationship with a place and its culture and its environment. But what our work seeks to do is intensify this condition of place by defamiliarizing our relationship to it. And so we've taken a much more transgressive position that provides for specificity that's drawn from a local situation. And we believe by mixing that with analogs from nature or from culture and from an understanding of a larger language of architecture, that we allow in our work for more virulent permutations of types and typologies. And I think that are resistant to the commodification of vernacular that's really evident in most of commercial construction that you see. So we're really trying to be much more transgressive in the work to be resistive. And I think in order to do this, you have to see type and typologies as something that's evolutionary, that's dynamic, and that's adaptable to other types. It cannot be fixed. If it does, it becomes about style. So for us, this is the task of recreating strangeness. I think this is really what we're after, through the mixing and the hybridization of the vernacular, the typological, the cultural, and the natural. And I like to call this architectural husbandry in a way. So again, just looking at the world around us and trying to selectively take out characteristics and then represent that place. And these are operations or actions that we look at and form. So the things that I try to make are immediately, I think, engaging locally because it is somewhat familiar, but at the same time, never quite fully connected. At the same time, never quite totally disconnected. So it's a productive tension that should hopefully come out of the work if it's successful. And we're always looking for these relationships between what is nature-made and what is culture-made, and finding those analogs and letting them really inform the work. So working between the ideal and the improvised in our discipline, and again, seeing both of those as having value, both of those conditions. Absolutely critical. So over the last 20 years, we've been able to develop a body of work. We even did a family tree, as you can see here, that's a kind of we call it evolutionary typologies and other mutations, where we're looking at typologies that are familiar to us, like the shotgun or the villa or the trailer or the barn or the bridge, and how those things are hybridized with other elements of natural form to create the expressive character that you find in, or that I like to see in a lot of our work or strive for. And then those ideas are folded in on top of each other in each project. So no matter what the project is, we're working on the same project in some ways. And so it's I think, absolutely important to develop a more concise and direct language in how you're trying to speak. So, and most of it began with this simple project right here. I think when I was at the League in 1998, this was just being completed. It is certainly a figure and a type that is, commonly seen in the landscape where I am, and mostly in other forms or in the other uses. This is the Keenan TowerHouse, and again, working in this sort of adaptive, typological way gives us a lot of, I think, agility to allow these things to evolve. And a lot of this is conditioned by travel. I love to travel with students or with my family or just myself all over the world, places like Yemen and Italy and Mali, and places that haven't, in some places that haven't been totally bulldozed by Western society, others that are the epitome of Western society, but drawing on those travels and drawing on, again, the direct experience, looking at the textures and patterns of nature and how that can evolve into this white oak lattice screen made out of the same wood that, and to the height of the mature height of these trees that surround it that make this base that surround the courtyard, and this creates this cacophony of light in the space. And beginning to look at ideas about how we view our place and what the act of viewing might be like and how space can condition that. A small structure, Walter mentioned the honey house. I was teaching with Peter Eisman at the time, introduced to a whole nother world, his world, not my world, trying to figure out how to read Deleuze and Guattari and not have an aneurysm, how to deal with types of processes I'd never heard about, but it opened up my mind to think about processes and durations that are happening simultaneously. A simple structure with one element that's for a beekeeper, and this one element is a load-bearing wall made of steel plate and faceted glass that at once acts as, again, a structural component as well as a place for storage and display of the honey and a brise soleil, and a way to kind of refract the world around it. This is an 8-foot high by 24-foot long element, but for me, it kind of, at that time, was emblematic of everything that I was striving for in architecture. More recently, a project in Indianapolis, the Indianapolis Museum of Art's Art and Nature Park's Visitor Center, developed with Guy Nordenson. An idea about one material, one detail that one comes in direct contact with an exoskeleton that's powerful, strong, heavy, but in effect, in perception, a structure very light. And again, just looking at what we find on the site, these leaves that had been eaten away by insects, a building that could be porous in the way in which the forest canopy has a porosity that allows water and light to come through and go right back into the aquifer, drawing upon our experiences of being under the largest rose bush in the country in Tombstone, Arizona, or underneath a construction, a kind of veiled construction site in front of a mosque in Timbuktu, and finding those relationships and then bringing those back in ways to this particular extended porch where the heavy structure is only understood but through its shadow as it's inscribed into the screen of the canopy. Challenging the stereotypes that surround certain building types, in this case a golf clubhouse, Blessings, where the owner said, I don't want another plantation home. I don't want another hunting lodge. How will you challenge, this? And that was the challenge. I said, I don't know anything about golf. And he said, dude, it's not about golf, it's about people in space. And so you got clients like that, you listen to them. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And I can do that. So we did a project that maintains the rituals of golf, the traditional rituals, but all locally quarried stone, copper, and again, using local vernaculars and typologies as a source of inspiration, but transforming that through an understanding of architecture, through an understanding of the material culture of a place. Our own home, very similar. How then to develop the influence that a diagram can have as it begins to give order to a site, in this case a small 9,000 square foot site in Fayetteville with a creek that runs diagonally through it. We moved next door and watched it for a year and a half, observed the creek, had Indian arrowheads in it, had crawfish. How do we preserve that and sustain it, and then create a minimal footprint in this small wood frame neighborhood that would preserve the little bit of land that we have for our kids to play on and so forth. So it's just two simple boxes, 18 foot wide, one which bridges, spans over the creek, the other which is rotated and spans back into the lot to create an outdoor space, an outdoor kitchen underneath. I told my roommate I would never own a house that I didn't design and build myself. I had no idea that I would be 50 until that happened, but it's not a good business plan. I don't recommend it. So. But it's really, in many ways, transformed the way in which we live and the way in which we relate to our place. We feel like citizens now of our community with this little structure. Thinking about this relationship, this volatile relationship between water and land and the environment, and when Darwinian moments happened, disasters, there really aren't any, I would say, natural disasters. I just heard this the other day. There are only natural events and man-made situations that aren't prepared for them, and that's what creates the disasters. So this is Katrina, a post-Katrina house, a prototype in Biloxi, Mississippi for Architecture for Humanity. It's called the Porch Dog. We were asked to make a market rate house that could be reproduced, so very unlike Make It Right, where you produce a unicorn at nearly $500,000, you mortgage it for $30,000 and beat your chest that it's net zero or something. This is about how do you deal with the brass tacks of getting it back into the market and resolving a problem, when the problem is FEMA requires you to lift the building up 6 to 11 feet in the city now, and the implications of that urbanistically on the social fabric of the city and the residual space that's left. So we looked at this typologically again, starting with a shotgun house and, of course, the prevalence of the porch, which is very important, certainly in Southern culture, as that interface between the private world and the public world, and where a lot of social interaction takes place. So we wanted to keep that. So we kept that on the ground. We lifted the building up, but rather than a long shotgun with columns underneath and a very residual space, we cut the program in half and stacked it, strided that, and then created a very concise footprint that you could park cars and have a few things underneath, but not overplay it, use the land that you have in more productive ways, and that evolves into the Porch Dog. And I love the image that in the lower right here. That's a Katrina cottage. That's what the new urbanists came up with. Brilliant. In the next category for storm, I know which building will be there and which one will not. And so this is a classic case of where typologies become fixed and they become about style, and they quit resolving problems. They quit dealing with the problems that the vernacular had to deal with and really become a commodity. And this is the thing that we're trying to overcome. Most recently, a school, one of the most impoverished building types in my neck of the woods. I don't know about here in New York, but there's challenges in economic will, challenges in expectations. This is a Montessori school built in a flood zone, basically unusable piece of land that always we were left with as a triangular footprint, and we had about $180 a square foot to build this with. It's 8,000 square foot elementary school, and we basically developed, we like to think of ourselves as the masters of the dumb boxes. So rather than do a triangular building, we just crisscross the boxes to create a triangle. And we get a rain garden out of that, green roof, all of that to control the runoff into the lake, into the creek where the flood zone is. And then these porches, again, to the south, where the kids are dropped off, where they're picked up, local cypress, and then this local box rib metal that we can get that's off the shelf, but then we customize the corner trims, the fascias, and the edges to give it a much more resolute feeling. And we take great pride in the details here. This is the other aspect that I'm going to show you in the second half of my talk here, as I talk really quickly, is resolving things like a corner that goes from 60 degrees to 90 degrees and has to be perfectly coursed with one piece of trim. And so we had to model that in our Revit model, and we drew it 3 dimensions, and we isolated and planned, and it looks screwy and weird, and then we have to fabricate it and put it up there. And actually the contractor fabricated it 3 times. He only wanted to do it once, but we made him do it 3 times. But we got it right, and that to us was a great victory here in this very simple project. But just small victories go a long ways. And we began to start scaling up, taking some of the same sensibility to a new high school. We're teamed up with DLR out of Kansas City, a major school architecture group, and Height Jackson, the architects of record. We're basically design architects in charge of really what it looks like in the planning. So on your left, I guess it's your left, that's right, my left, is the new athletic facilities, and on the right, a new performing arts complex with its marquee. Again, we had to come up with a system cheaper than brick because we couldn't afford brick. The money wasn't there. So again, the box rib metal, locally quarried stone that we could cut really thin. In our neck of the woods, we call it lick and stick, but it's real stone. It's not cultured stone, and it's put together in the dry stack look. And it was cheaper than brick, and we're like, hell, this is better in our mind in terms of the context of where we work at, where we don't have brick buildings. We have stone buildings, we have metal buildings, and so forth. So again, taking that to a whole nother level. And this is just one half of a 500,000 square foot project that's will be coming to a close. 4 years of construction, be coming to close next year. A recent project that's on the boards will be start construction in March. Working with James Corner office. In Memphis, one of the largest urban parks in the country, Shelby Farms. It's a 4,500 acre park. We've been working with them for several years. Our assignment is to do an ensemble of buildings around the lake that they're doing, and near the wonderful playground that they've done as well. Again, this ensemble is informed by the porch, by how we can produce shade, how we can create that inside-outside relationship. This is the visitor center with its 50-foot cantilever. It's all clad in bar grate, and it's a ventilated porch with 5 big-ass fans that slowly turn and keep it nice and cool, because the thing about Memphis is you can have shade and you'll just melt in the shade. So how do you ventilate that? How do you activate? So you can see on the far right, but this is just some of the inspiration, everything from a sharecropper's cabin to a big shed. All of these start to inform these buildings that are centered around the lake: a restaurant retreat center, a boat, a kiosk, a stage pavilion, a variety of structures that will all be built simultaneously and will be a sort of large still life around the lake. And finally, to bring this first half of the talk to a close, is our most recent project, the Creative Corridor in Little Rock, Arkansas, where we teamed up with our Community Design Center on an NEA Our Town grant to speculate on taking 4 blocks of Main Street and turning it into a destination for all our creative institutions, arts institutions in Little Rock. So rather than having the repertory theater across town, along with the symphony over here and the ballet over here, we're now getting them to all move down to this 4-block area and begin to transform it through a street logic of shared streets and urbanism that begins to unite this and give it an identity, and then creating a series of buildings that act as gateways. Let's see, here on one corner, and then let's see, where's that other one? I didn't put that one in there. But then in both cases, taking the urbanism vertically up into the next level. So streets, connections between parking lots to movie theaters and so forth, all happens in the skin and the envelope, and just begin to project a vision for how we can reinvigorate the downtown, where major retail ain't coming back. Not where I live, not with the Walmarts and the Targets and so forth. We've already made a decision as a culture about how we're going to shop. So what else can we do to bring people back to the city? And this now is under construction, not so much the architecture, but certainly the streets. They've gotten grants and so forth, and it's totally transforming, and housing projects are starting. It's really quite a phenomenon in Little Rock, which is becoming more and more of a destination in our state. So I started with a small structure like a honey house and worked all the way up. And that, in many ways, is the evolution of where we've been headed with our firm. Embedded in all that has been, again, this other aspect of what we do. And that's really what I like to call is the transformations. And in some cases, I thought about this because I like to call things transmutations, where things are still embedded and it really isn't formally changed all that much. But in effect, in some of these projects I'm going to show you, we do change form too. So I relented and said transformations. But, we talk about the buzzwords of sustainability and environmental responsiveness, all of that all the time, which gets basically greenwashed into things like, well, I got a geothermal, or I've got, some bamboo floors or something like that. And I don't think most of us beat our chest, but some people do that. It's kind of becomes a substitute for actually doing architecture. But the other aspect of this is repurposing, is using the fabric that we have already and beginning to provide the past for the future, beginning to speculate, use the existing DNA that you have in that fabric and allow it to be a generator for how to reprogram, to rethink the future of these buildings. That's nothing new here. It's been happening for years that things go up, they come down, and it's tragic. I'm going to make an argument that it should stay no matter what and find a way to use it. And especially in towns like where I live in, there are secondhand that become, a main street of junk stores, and a pizza place or something. How are we ever going to have, thriving places, cities, communities without this invigorated fabric? So I saw these pictures from an exhibit that involved two people that are very dear to the community of Fayetteville, Arkansas. William J. Fulbright, the senator, if you've heard of Fulbright scholarships, and Edward Durrell Stone, both of who were raised and grew up in Fayetteville, Arkansas. This is post-war. The Fulbright family made their money through the lumber mills, and they made furniture, and they made, not furniture, but they made plowshares and farming utensils and wagon wheels and things of that nature. And there was less of a demand of it post-war. At the same time, this is the 1950, Edward Durrell Stone is building the first fine arts complex in America on the University of Arkansas's campus. And they were talking over dinner one day, and Mr. Fulbright was kind of bemoaning the fact that there's less and less demand. And Mr. Stone said, well, I have an idea. Why don't we take those utensils and repurpose them into an international line of furniture that I can put in my building along with the calders and everything else that's going there, and then we can also market it. So that is exactly what these pictures capture, that these plow handles that become chairs, these wagon wheels that become stools, and using the local basket weaving culture, craft, making these beautiful chase lounges out of giant plowshares and the local white oak bark strips that baskets are made from. So all of this, we were employed to repurpose this and create a new product, a new form, and extend the life of the material culture of this place. So in that line of thinking, I take you to Gentry, Arkansas, a town of 2,500 people. They have two industries there. One is a Little Debbie snack food plant. If you like oatmeal cakes, great place to go. The other is a wild country safari zoo where you drive through the landscape and you're chased by emus and monkeys trying to jump all over your car. It's a great experience for the kids. The car, it's another matter. So that's it. And it's a town, like I say, 2,500, and this is their downtown street nearly 10 years ago. Pretty rundown place. But they had a dream of having a library, a public library. They had one, but it was privately funded, just a little storefront with some paperbacks in it. And they had come into possession of an old mercantile building over 100 years old that looked like this. And it was on the corner of Main Street and Collins. And they dreamed of having a public library, a community room, a place to exhibit artifacts from the city's history, a genealogy department. And, they were really hungry for it. And they brought us in, and I took one look at this building, and I said, well, my recommendation would be that you tear it down and let's start over, because this is going to be a quagmire. And, of course, the head of the library board reacted, oh, you can't do that. I said, there's a great sentimentality associated with this building. This was the socio-economic hub of our city for almost 100 years. And the mayor chimed in. He said, yeah, I used to eat barbecued beaver there as a kid out of the front room. And I was like, we eat anything in Arkansas, but I was a new one. So, what to do? And so you can't tear it down. And they didn't want the false history that we as architects are so good at providing when asked to. They didn't want the pastiche, the Disneyfication either. So it was a dilemma what to do. And this is a building that, as you can see, it's in Tornado Alley. It's been hit by storms, brick blown off, the parapet blown off. What to do? You can see it at the turn of the century, under construction. And what we decided to do was to leave the building essentially as an artifact, as a ruin, and develop a series of details, windows, doors, columns, those sort of minimal units of signification for our experience of a building, and to study those. And so we developed, I like to call them soap bubble kind of details. So instead of infilling the window openings and so forth, we glassed over them and to kind of frame the ornament and the window as an artifact in and of itself in which things could be displayed. And things are, in the way in which things are displayed, even as they're everyday objects, is a transformative in itself. So that was the approach, to develop a new language for this existing building. Now the trick was we had to do it for $108 a square foot. Today, it's still the least expensive public library in the state of Arkansas. It took 3 years to build. It had to be rebid 3 times. We had to get a hardship waiver from the state. Went through a lot of pain, economically and politically, to make this happen. But it truly has begun to change Main Street itself. And it's a tough town. I mean, that's the mayor on the motorcycle there. And he owns a tattoo parlor. But this guy is the smartest politician I know. His name is Wes Hogue. He knew how to get us through the small town politics. He helped them pass a millage, this little town, $1 million millage, to help pay for it. He got the family that owns Little Debbie Snack Food to give $250,000. They raised a maintenance millage as well. And this is in the reddest part of our state, so where you don't do things like that. Well, he got him to do that, and I really respect him. And it took us 7 years to get this project built. And again, it's just a series of details. The new storefront, these are all load-bearing fins. The inside, is the library stacks, the community room you see, the narrow space, and then up above, the genealogy department and where the exhibits take place. And at night, it has a great deal of transparency. There's a very transparent interface between the street and the building. Our kind of Chilton, carburetor drawing here where we show the chassis, which is the existing building, and then the kit of parts that we developed, windows and columns, that begin to give it a new system of articulation. And things are quite taut. This is the north side. We used the thermal mass of the building on 3 sides to give us the energy rating we needed on something more efficient on the north, inefficient on the north side. But it all works out. And then we put radiant heat to keep the glass from condensating. The lateral bracing becomes shelves for books and journals, so you have that direct connection with the street. Inside, very transparent. There's a pressed tin ceiling from the turn of the century that had to be saved and not penetrated. So the mayor got county prisoners to take each tin tile down one by one, number it, label it. They restored it and then put it back up. And then to get light into the place other than the natural light, these new columns we had to replace. We did these sort of Messian columns, wrapped them in books, wrapped them in glass, and then put light in the bottom and bounced the light off the ceiling, and it creates the diffuse light for the reading area. The old mechanical lift is turned into an exhibit. Buggies were taken down from the second floor and brought out to the street in the old days to hook up to the horses. Somebody donated a buggy, so it's the first of many exhibits that are embedded in the building. So again, the building itself becomes effectively an exhibit in addition to the exhibits. Upstairs, new restoration of the floors, the librarian's office, a new beacon over the existing skylight, and then taking simple things like how do you take north light and a more prosaic kind of program the library, and then introduce the kind of this more spiritual aspect of how light can animate a place. So this was the first winner of a National AIA Library Award for the state of Arkansas, and it's gotten lots of attention, but I think the thing that makes us feel best about it from the idea of what architecture can do is that when we started this project, there were 300 library card holders in this town of 2,500. Today, there are over 2,300 library card holders in a town of 2,500. So I really think the architecture has something to do with that, and that's the power and the transformative power that it can have. In the same spirit of that, we've recently taken an actual library, a 60s library by Warren Seagraves right in Fayetteville, and transformed it into an office building that was going to be torn down. Some developers stepped in and bought it and said, well, we can make an office building out of this. It was a building made for books, so there wasn't a lot of light. If there was, it was very carefully controlled. And so we transformed it, the whole new curtain wall system, and a series of operations that bring light into this matte building in a variety of ways, and extended it to the east, as you can see out there on the end, in the same language to create additional footprint and access to the parking below. So lots of additions have happened over time. But what the owners wanted to do was rent this basement of this thing for the same amount per square foot as the upper floor. So to achieve this, we had to rethink how we program it, and so we actually stacked the tenants, and we cut through in between the structure, not through the structure, but between the structure, a series of light wells and courtyards that bring light into the middle of the building, and then also infill places that were outdoors before, like you see here, with glass that creates a courtyard, a series of small interventions that very stealth. This is now our office, our architecture office here. And so the existing, that you see above, and then this operation where we start to saw and cut these openings through, and then create these interior courtyards that tenants work around, and they can rent it and make it pencil out, as the developers say, for them. And a lot of this with this universal grid of columns that came with 60s buildings like this, we developed independent relationships too, so finding ways to work around them, which created localized geometries that I think were very effective in articulating the space in different ways. And then this addition in a similar language of the new, but then developing a joint between the old and new with a suspended stair that's hung from a beam, clad in bar grate. It gives access from the parking lot, and again acts as a formal joint between the old and new, directly into the brokerage firm, which is on the second floor. One of the things we wanted to introduce is a conference room that could be shared by all tenants. So upon your entry across this bridge, to your right is that conference room, which used to be handicap ramps and stairs, and we had to control the acoustics. So from a boyhood memory of being in the Natural History Museum with giant fish carcasses above us and skeletons, developed what we affectionately call the ship in the bottle, a figure that's suspended out of black zinc and acoustical material that controls the acoustics in the room. We're really good at post-rationalization. Once we got through, it's like, oh yeah, it looks like that too. So if you're going to be an architect, you got to be able to post-rationalize. And it works amazingly. It's all fiber optically lit, and it's just like the cone of silence when you're in there. So it's very cool. And again, another figure that's emplaced in the room that floats and acts as a kind of public art piece right adjacent to the neighborhood that really came out to help save the building. So 2 projects left. Am I going fast enough? Okay, 5 minutes? 5 minutes, 2 minutes. For a Southerner, this is really difficult. Talking fast, I don't know, man. More recently, we had our first chance to do a religious structure, a church, which has always been a dream. This was for a community of Orthodox Christians who were worshiping in Springdale, Arkansas, in a rundown office building. One of their parishioners died. They needed some land, so they went out and bought 3.5 acres along the interstate, came with a house and some other stuff, and they wanted a sanctuary and a fellowship hall where they could worship and also where they could be seen from the interstate, and they would be amongst all these other mega churches. You see the other 3 churches that are nearby in the footprint of our little church. They're backed up to the city part. Now, when they came to us, this is what they said they wanted, was this Byzantine chapel. And they said, we've got $100 a square foot that we can spend on this. And I said, well, if that was all flattened out on a billboard, we could probably do it, but not likely. And what you see below are adventures in religious architecture where I'm from. Let's hang a cross on a metal building. It's interesting. It's a phenomenon in a way, but it's also a cultural or a value-laden kind of response, too. If you think about it, no one lives in these buildings. I've seen people drive up on Sunday mornings with cars that cost more than these buildings, but they have no problem worshiping it. I don't get it. But this is a different form of worship in the Orthodox Christian faith and traditions. So we had to figure out what to do, and to our surprise, they wanted us to turn this building into the church, which was an old welding shop next to the house. Our hearts sank. And what to do? Fortunately, we only had $100 a square foot. So we leveraged that, and we said, we can't do your Byzantine chapel. We're going to go back to first principles. We're going to go back to proportion and scale, and we're going to look at the origins of your church in that context and see what we can come up with. And so this is the little church that came out of that, all through Greek proportions, and we kind of demonstrated that through diagrams with all the icons, things that they demanded for worship. It's basically adding 10 feet to the front of this building to create a narthex and a small pastor's office. That narthex, north-south, puts you on an east-west axis through the sanctuary, and then movable doors into the fellowship hall where they have overflow during certain services. And so really a sacred and a prosaic kind of marriage here. We reskinned the existing building. This is a true American double skin system. And we took this simple off-the-shelf system and, like I say, customized the corners, coursed everything out. We actually put the concrete pad there so you could see where the fire exit door is. So everything is very stealthily. We've just reduced everything except for the icons and for the color and for the face of the shrouded building that faces the interstate. And then we lit it up at night. And it created quite a stir in the church, but they were receptive and open. It created a stir in the community as well, because metal buildings aren't allowed, all metal buildings in Springdale. So we had to get a variance on that, because putting the brick wainscoting around is like putting lipstick on a pig in a way. So we're thinking, how do we use what we know as architects and designers, proportion and scale? So there's the cut through Father John's office up above, through the narthex, through a shelf, which is actually a return air unit, has a steel channel filled with sand, which is the cantilever. Candles go in that. A niche for St. Nicholas, their patron saint, that leads you to this tower washed in the blood of Christ. So that's it. It's very simple. Lots of drywall, paint, local white oak. Move into the sanctuary. Here, simple iconostasis made of angle iron, very transparent to see Father John working at the altar during the services. We cut one simple window on the east side to get the morning light during services. You can still see the guy wires hold up the structure. But what was really important to them that we didn't have was a dome. And we couldn't put a dome on the top, fortunately, but we told them because we had a superstructure we'd have to cut through. So they said, well, can you put the dome on the inside? We said, sure, but they couldn't afford a dome, a pre-manufactured dome, and we didn't think we had the skill to make a good dome. And so we were running out of ideas. When the contractor came up with a brilliant idea, he said, listen, man, I know a metal worker about 20 miles from here that for 2 cases of beer, I can get a satellite dish that he has, and we'll bring that out to the site. So we're in the middle of construction. It makes sense. The satellite dish, of course, has its own natural lath built into it, so we replastered it, and then we jacked it up, and then they've got their dome with the Pantocrator. And one of the building committee members was so excited when he saw this go up. In the spirit of all this, he said, I know where we can get a bishop's throne, too. I said, really? He said, yeah, it's big, and it's walnut, it's got crushed purple velvet upholstery, and I can get it for free. And I said, oh, where? And he goes, well, the local liquor store, it's part of an ad campaign. I was like, oh. And he said, they'll give it to me when the ad campaign's done. But I don't know what we're going to do with the embroidered CR on it. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He goes, Crown Royal. And Father John overheard us, and he said, no, Christ the Redeemer. So that's how we roll here, and that's what makes things happen. So when we got the call last year from the AIA Honor Committee that this had won a National AIA Honor Award, they said they had gone back and done research, and they could confirm that this was the least expensive National AIA Honor Award winner in the history of the awards program. So once again, it allows us to demonstrate, I think, to our place and to the profession that architecture can happen anywhere, at any scale, and just about any budget. So I'd like to end with our most recent project, built project, which is the School of Architecture at University of Arkansas. Have some alums here. Go Hogs. This was a project a long time in the making, but to make the story short, we've been in this Beaux-Arts building, which was the library in the center of campus, for 40 years. We've never had our school together as one. Landscape was one part of campus, interior is the other, architecture in this building. So this was an opportunity to renovate a 65,000 square foot building and add 35,000 square feet to it to make a complete school right dead center of the building. We were really hoping we could just get a piece of land on the edge of town, edge of campus, and do our own thing, but we had to take the DNA of this building and really let it help generate the new addition. And the only requirement the university made on us, though, fortunately, much to their regret later, was that the new addition had to be the same width and length of this Beaux-Arts piece of the east elevation of this building. So we did that. We were, again, working with similar proportion and scale. We created our own, our own expression of how we thought an architecture building could be, something that clearly, definitively operates in the 21st century, but could act as a didactic moment for the students where the old and new begin to inform each other. And for the first time, people could really begin to see and understand on the university community what happens in this place when the lights are on all the time. So no longer hiding us away and squirreling us away. So it's in the center of campus. We have this beautiful axis, Old Main I showed you in the first slide, and then our building, and then the library, and then the plaza, the Union, and all the way to the football stadium. Problem is, you never could, when it was a building and when it was our old building, go all the way through this, because in the middle of our building, it was a full of books. And my thing is dead. Well, yeah, it is. So right here was full of books. So we had to rethink how we open up that axis, and the idea was to kind of core it out and then rebuild the center, and then add our bar, our addition, to transform a T into an H or an I, a figural building still on the campus. And again, this was through a careful analysis. I noticed the students at Cooper here doing analysis, a lot of it, hats off. What a great way to do it. Don't ever give that up, because being analytical about this helped us understand, again, the proportion to scale, the units of measure that informed what we did here with this limestone rain screen. Comes 50 miles from the original quarry of the limestone cladding for the existing building. This newly opened up axis allows for a series of interventions and, again, figures, vitrines for display, a new exhibit gallery we've never had before over here, student lounge, department head, dean's office, all the public facilities on the ground floor, and now the university, this becomes a byway for people moving through the building. We've made the building public. And then great ways to kind of show off the work that we do. 200-year-old oak trees had to come down to put the new building. So we took them down, we carefully limbed them, cut them into lumber in southern Arkansas, gave it to a master woodworker in Jackson, Mississippi, and turned this into a 25-foot long by 5-foot wide tableau, where we can now talk about face grain, long grain, end grain. It really becomes a teaching tool as well as a social space in the middle of that axis. And then the western entrance from the library, how to deal with western sun on a 200-foot long elevation where all the new studios and auditorium classrooms are going to go. We developed a custom steel and glass brise-soleil that by separating the warranties between the glass and the steel fabricators are able to save millions of dollars and custom make this locally about 10 miles away and have the same kind of steel sashes that we have in the old building. So there's no aluminum storefront on the building. And then developing a detached fritted glass brise-soleil to control the sun. And so, in effect, we've made one large window for this 200-foot long facade. Inside, it's all post-tension concrete, and that this brise-soleil balances the light out to provide a lot of natural light into studios. And then access this figure that emplaces itself in the middle of the campus, but then is elevated through a series of pochade walls that become the exhibit gallery here. And to get this past the design review board was to follow up with it as a didactic kind of exercise. So we did a reverse figure ground exercise for the review board saying, hey, look, in the past the figures were primarily in the ornamentation and the windows, and the building acted more as a ground. Because of technology, because of new ways of thinking about space and form, we now can make the building the figure and the fenestration the ground. And we can learn from that, and our students can learn from that. And they bought into it, and so it comes to life. And our first exhibit was the Fay Jones. We are the Fay Jones School of Architecture, so it was a small retrospective on his work. Then using the sloping terrain, we created a plinth within an exhibition, events plaza, and then studios below that are lit from the east. And then a formal joint between the old and new, which are actually exit stairs that all done in raw steel, and worked with Richard Renfro and carefully embedding lights in the post-tension concrete that creatively light the spaces during the day and night. And then these spaces between become social spaces, pin-up spaces, a lot of sanded homosote. The biggest space in central space is we call the old gallery, a nicely proportioned space, but as you can see, has seen better times. It's in the picture up above. So our idea was to add studio space to the top of this, to core a hole through it, to get natural light and our connection with nature in the middle of the building, where it didn't have good lighting before, and then begin to treat the acoustics as well. And we did that through a 2,500 square foot pneumat ceiling that's all backlit, and then a red oculus we call the retoculus, and then light from the north and south. North light really is kind of blue, so that's kind of cool. So this is the oculus, and then the pin-up area where we have multi-events, and then we cut a slice through the wall that we can slip these panels out, store them away, and it become a big open dance floor for the Beaux-Arts, which it did just recently. And again, that relationship between the old and the new, the new is born out of the old, but the new informs the old. And I tell the students, you just go upstairs, you look into this Oculus, this all red deal. It's better than 5 Red Bulls. Get fired up, get back to work. Our reading room, giant reading room over here, was in terrible shape. Really a lot of problems with the systems and the integration of those systems. That's all transformed, reintegrated, new custom lighting, new desks with built-in LEDs, so task lighting as well as room lighting complementing each other, newly restored windows. Down in the basement, opening that up for all the candy store, the toys that you got to have now. schools. And then learning spaces like in the auditorium and underneath in the student lounge and a covered outdoor classroom up here on the south side. So this is the auditorium. You have natural light, but you can also close that off for events and lectures. And it's a split screen system. And the idea was to steal space from the back wall so that we could have a faculty lounge where faculty can come and gossip about the students. But it had a student lounge as well, all wrapped in felt. And we call it the Boneless Chicken Ranch. People are always sleeping in there. Then a roof terrace with a Ozark sedum roof. It's a laboratory for our landscape department with faculty offices. A wonderful place to hang out, have lunch. And then a space of refuge and prospect overlooking the Boston Mountains, and it's our outdoor classroom. Another place, great place kids like to hang out. You know what? I'm going to cut it off there because I know we got questions. Thank you.